What's going on, awesome people? Welcome to another episode of Awesome People. That's like the worst introduction ever. Can I stop and restart this? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Awesome People Instagram Live. It is Sunday, December 5th, and what a pleasure it is to be here with you. Whether you're on your couch, whether you're on the road, whatever you're doing, I hope that you're safe and you're happy and you're healthy. And I just want to say thank you for spending a part of your Sunday with me. And really, for those of you who've been joining me for the past few days, I appreciate you joining me on this conversational journey with awesome Persians that I know in entrepreneurship, in the creative world, as well as I don't know, just like awesome Persians. You know, it doesn't. For me, awesome just means somebody that has found their purpose in life and that is about to go and do something great for the community, whether it's locally or globally. You don't have to be super famous. You don't have to have billions of followers. You just have to have a purpose in life with a good heart and wanted to help other people. And my guest today, for sure, falls under that category. And I'm so grateful for her taking time out of a Sunday morning for her in California. It's very early, and so I appreciate her making time. And like I said, I appreciate you making time. And in case you're not familiar with what we do here, I decided to make a public pledge last week of doing 31 IG Lives with the most awesome Persian entrepreneurs, creatives, and artists that I know. And I want to talk about a wide range of things, from entrepreneurship to mental health like we are today, and just some other great people that have amazing stories that can inspire, motivate, educate, entertain, and have a good time. So really appreciate you guys joining. In case you don't know, I do have a podcast. It's called the Awesome People Podcast. Due to time and resources and budgeting, I can't do that as many times as I would like, but you can go to awesomepeoplepodcast.com to check out the 24 episodes that I've had in the past. And we're on a mission at Unite and Conquer, which is my community platform, to reach 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So if you don't mind, go to the Unite and Conquer YouTube channel, subscribe so that you can get notification whenever I have Awesome People podcasts, whenever I have IG Lives like this. And we also have like a Persian music live stream. There's a lot of good stuff over there that is intended to not just unite English-speaking Persians, but also I want to make sure that we're represented properly to the rest of the world. So if you're non-Persian and you're tuning in, I welcome you as well. It's a very inclusive space. I just, as an Iranian American who was born in Germany, from roots from Iran, I just feel like I have an obligation to represent us as best as possible. And I do that by putting a spotlight on awesome Persians that I know. So that's that. And a few days ago, I decided to start my Awesome People Instagram Live series with a little gratitude session, you know, and literally for 10 seconds, I just want to pause and I want to stop the world if I can and literally just count a few things that I'm extremely grateful for. So it's nothing, prayer-like or anything, but I will just close my eyes for 10 seconds. I'm going to count my blessings, and if you'd like to take a moment as well, I think it will make you much happier in just 10 seconds. So here we go, 10 seconds of gratitude dedicated to you. And just like that, thank you so much. And I hope that it is a day filled with happiness and joy and positive energy, you know. And so with that in mind, I do have a guest today that is very special to me in a sense that I've never met her in person. But you know how sometimes you just connect through somebody socially, through social media, and their Instagram posts, they just kind of touch you, they motivate you, they enlighten you. Well, that's been Ida Khamesy for me. And she is a licensed marriage family therapist based out of Irvine, and I'm so happy that she's made time today to join us. And we're going to be talking about transparency and authenticity, literally just figuring out how to be comfortable with who you are and then giving that to the world and giving the best of yourself in the world and just seizing the moment in the day. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on the lovely Ida. In the meantime, thank you for joining. Feel free to let me know where you're at. If you have any questions for Ida, let us know. Today, we're talking therapy with Ida. I'm accepting. And let's see if the power of technology will do its magic. And there it is.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Ida. How are you?
Good. How are you? Happy Sunday.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we finally made it to this point, you know?
Me too. Me too.
Appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday morning. I know it's super early on your end of the world. I appreciate you very much. This is actually our first interaction in any capacity, other than the phone call that we had like an hour ago. So Again, I appreciate you kind of doing this out of nowhere. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me on the show.
Of course. So basically, we talked about briefly about like, what are the things that you are passionate about and that you love to help other people with. But let's take a step back first. And for those who don't know who Ida is, give a little background of who you are and also, how, the career that you're in.
Yes. So professionally, I, have my practice in Irvine. I work with individuals, families, couples. I also teach at Pepperdine. I'm part-time faculty there. I teach law and ethics to students who want to be therapists. And personally, so I was born in the United States, but we did a lot of back and forth. So I've lived both in Iran and here. And so I always knew that there's more to life, that people want connection, that there are issues that people are not really willing to talk about. And so when I took my first psychology course in undergrad, I'm like, aha, it all makes sense. And so that's what really motivated me to pursue this path of being a marriage and family therapist.
Can you just give a little more of a background of when you were born or like it was first in US, but how many years did you spend in Iran? Because that's actually information that I had no idea. So when did you live in Iran?
So if my mom's listening, she's going to get upset. But I always tell her, I'm like, you're like, how could I mess this kid up, right? So I was born here. First grade, I was in Iran. Second grade, I was here. Third grade, I was in Iran. Fourth grade, like literally all the way up until high school. And then high school there is only 3 years. So then I did high school there. And then when I was 17, I'm like, peace out, bye, I'm leaving. And then I've been here since. I did go back for 1 or 2 visits, but I'm mostly here all the time.
Yeah, I found it to be an extremely hard time to come to like America, like at 16, 17. I came when I was 10, but I was born and raised in Germany. So it wasn't even as off as Iran to US, but even that was a challenging time. But 16, 17 is so hard for a regular person growing up in America, let alone from a completely different culture. So first of all, tell us about that transition and that acclimation to Western life, or reacclimation in your case.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the theme for me personally has always been I don't belong because I was too westernized for Iran and maybe I was too fobby for here. So I always thought like, oh my God, like where do I belong? Who am I, right? Who am I supposed to be? And I think coming from a collectivist culture, there are so many labels and expectations already, which then amplify the stress of being an adolescent because there are also so many stressors of, well, you need to be this way or you need to be that way. So you take that in combo with our culture, it's like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. So it's taken me many, many years, and I think it's a journey, and I'm always going to be on it, of really learning to turn inwards, tune in of, who am I, and questioning and practicing the pause of, why am I saying yes to this? Why am I saying no to this? What does this mean for me? So I think the process of adjusting is a lifetime journey, which makes it interesting. It's like you're peeling back an onion, learning more about yourself.
Going multiple layers deep. Study thyself,
Yes.
So is that pretty much, you essentially took matters into your own hands in college, and you're like, there is a field that allows me to understand myself, perhaps people, and to not only improve myself, but then you found a purpose to, I guess, help other people as well. Am I kind of, is
Yes.
that a good nutshell?
Yes. Spot on. Yes.
So today, we wanted to make sure that we really discuss transparency, authenticity. Why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit more about transparency, the importance of it, and perhaps being able to tie in the personality aspect of it. It's kind of like an interesting word that I try to use here and there.
I love it. Well, I mean, think about it. Transparency, like if you translate it in Farsi, I don't even know if we have a word for it. Right? I really don't. Like transparency or boundaries, those are words.
My Farsi isn't good enough to know it
Okay.
anyway, so I'm not the good person to ask. Transparency. That's my
So I'm sure we have terminology that would be similar, but I don't know if they're really tapping into what those words actually mean. Because again, we come from a collectivist culture, and I'm not trying to bash the culture. I love our culture. I think there are some great components to it. But when it comes to mental health, we don't really support each other because we're a very shame-based culture. So for example, I remember when I was growing up in Iran, we had this student, I'm going to say teacher's pet, that's not what they were called, but the teacher would pick them to kind of control the class when she would step out. And she would make a list on the board, khub ha, bad ha, meaning who's good and who's bad. So if you're being loud, you're bad. And so Brene Brown talks a lot about this of
I
shame.
love Brene Brown.
So she's amazing. So shame versus guilt, right? So shame is I am bad. Guilt is I've done something that maybe is not the best, right? But a shame-based culture like ours is you are bad, right? You need to have shame. You need to be embarrassed. You know, if a guest comes over and you don't have tea, be embarrassed. You are bad, you know. And so I think all of those things connecting it to transparency at times create a recipe for disaster because then we have adults who go into romantic relationships and know nothing about themselves, know nothing about transparency, so they can't contain their own emotions, yet alone the emotions of another person. And then you have divorces and unhappy relationships and people who are connected but yet super disconnected.
So is that, I'm sure you have Persian and non-Persian patients. What do you, or do you call them patients? Is there a better word? Or,
I call them clients.
clients, there we go, clients. I love that. And actually, I forgot to kind of mention at the beginning of the video is that one purpose of this entire conversation is to normalize the entire concept of having somebody who's a professional, who understands a little bit more, who really is doing research on all this stuff and is well intended. Like the word therapy, I feel like it's become so stigmatic, and like there's no need for it. So, in your opinion, what has been the most common challenge that fellow Persians, for example, would be contacting you? What are you getting the most of, and what are the ways that we can improve those things so people can live a healthier and happier life?
Yeah, so yes, of course, I work with both Persians and non-Persians. So the Persians, I mean, different categories, right? So if they're married, set of unique issues, and if they're not married, and I'll kind of go into both. So if they're married, it's usually in-laws, and that goes back to transparency and boundaries. And I can't say this to my mom, I can't say this to my dad. And so just a lot of just suppressing of the emotions, which then puts a lot of pressure on the marital unit.
Mm-hmm.
So boundaries, again, transparency. And with the single folks, it's a lot of pressure, because, the essence or the core of a healthy relationship is transparency. Do I know who I am to then know what I'm looking for, to then be able to find and be like, aha, because a lot of times people meet each other, but because they don't have enough knowledge of the self, they might push someone away who's actually a really good choice for them. So with single folks, it's a lot of like what I hear a lot is, oh, well, my mom said I should break up with so and so. Well, why? Oh, he's not blah, 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 blah. So just these labels of who he's supposed to be or who she's supposed to be, and not so much an understanding about, well, what do you want in a partner and why? Where do those values come from?
And is it like a multi-step process? Like right now, if somebody is in that kind of situation, what are some key takeaway points or just some initial steps that they can be taken to just kind of curb this challenge?
Obviously, my first recommendation is please see a professional so that someone can help you. I mean, nobody needs advice. We all know what we're doing, but sometimes it helps to sit across a non-judgmental person and just talk out loud and figure out who you are. But I think a simple step is really literally taking a piece of paper and pen and writing down what are my values? Where do they come from? Does it come from culture, society, religion, friends? How many of these values do I want to keep? How many of them do I want to modify? And how many of them I just really need to let go because they're not serving me? So it's this constant reevaluation of how come? Why? Like this curiosity, not defensiveness.
Mm.
Because I think when we're defensive, we're just shut down to the world and we're not very receptive to new ideas.
What about younger Iranian, especially Iranian Americans, like between like the 18 and 25 range? Do you see that there's also the same challenges? Because at that age, they're thinking about careers. Is this really what I want to be doing on my life? And they see all these people on social media, their same age with millions of followers and traveling the world, and just kind of setting these unrealistic expectations. What do you say to Iranian Americans or Iranians outside of Iran that are dealing with these type of things between the teenage and 20, 25 year age range?
I mean, think about it. Each stage, there's a task, right? And so, for lack of better term, it's very normal and age stage appropriate to kind of struggle with who am I, right? And what am I going to do? Because your 20s, I actually wrote like a little piece on this of the tasks of your 20s. If everybody makes your 20s sound like, oh, it's the best time of your life, it's actually not, because they're the projects of your 20s, because you have to make a lot of big decisions. Not that you can't go back, but it's going to be harder to go back to it. So I think it's important because comparison is also another piece in our culture, from a young
Big
age,
time.
right? Like, what did you get on your math test? Like A. Well, what did, Susie get? What did this person? Well, your cousin got an A+. So I think it's really important to not be ashamed of feeling even jealous or having a little bit of comparison going on at times, even if it's unrealistic with people that we don't even know on social media. But I think it's thinking about priorities, that people go after what they value. So if you know what you want, you can think about what do I value and then go after that. But then to also step back and say, I mean, we love social media, right? It helps, like, look at us, we're connected. But really, what's real and what's not? And how do you draw that line?
Well, I mean, as you being Iranian, and I think if most immigrants they have these challenges. I think when they come to America, especially, do you think that there's like what is from an anxiety standpoint is really what I'm trying to get at is like when they are having this feeling of anxiety of I don't know how to handle this, how do I approach this? I understand talking to a therapist is also a step, but like what are some other things that you can recommend that they can do on a daily basis to lessen this anxiety, this pressure, because that's really what it is. It's just overwhelming pressure that is coming a lot of times from parents who they intend well, they mean well, but their approach for whatever reason is not working. That's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you.
So I think, if I'm understanding you correctly, one thing that needs to shift internally is learning to be okay with disappointing the people that we love.
Hmm.
There's a big difference between hurting people versus being okay with disappointing somebody else because something just doesn't sit well with me. And I think that's a big dilemma of like, well, I don't want them to be upset. I don't want my dad sacrificed everything. I mean, that's the struggle of immigration of now the pressure is on of like, they gave up so much for us. So now
Right.
you owe them, right? So I think part of it is learning to be okay with it's okay to disappoint, not hurt, but to disappoint because you want to stick true to yourself. I think it's important to find people a sense of community. So people who are doing the things that you want to be doing in the future and interview them, learn about them, just gain perspective. Because sometimes some career choices may seem pretty amazing, but then when you get into it, you're like, I didn't know it's going to be like
Not for me. Yeah. What about in general? Like, I feel like the last 5, 6 years or so, there's been a discussion, a big discussion about mental health awareness. Do you think that we are headed the right direction? Like, would you say there's actually been progress in not just the general demographic, but within the Persian, like around you? Are you proud of some kind of progress that's happening amongst parents and the younger generation growing up here?
I really am, especially if we're speaking about the Persian community. I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Holakui.
Of course.
Yes. And so even though, the way he speaks is very general, but he's really, really decreased the stigma of mental health. I may not necessarily agree with everything he says, but I have a lot of respect for him because I think that he's normalized, like, yes, please talk about things. It's okay. And just the ability to have people go on air and talk about issues. I have a lot of clients saying, like, yeah, I was driving and I was listening to him and he said this. And, truthfully, I felt that too. And so I think we are making progress. Is probably not as fast as I would personally like, but I do think the stigma is not as great as it used to be maybe a few years back.
What's amazing is Dr. Holakui is like a true OG. Like he was having these conversations 25, 30 years ago, and I'm sure that our parents, half of them thought that he was a nutcase, with all due respect. But like he really got it extremely early on when comparing it to our entire society, and he's done an incredible job, like keeping it real, being completely honest, and using his expertise to enlighten our society. And I can only imagine how difficult it has been with him dealing with people who are probably giving him a lot of pushback. I mean, I have so much respect for what he has done for the entire Iranian community. Okay, so what else can we talk about that you believe are pain points in especially younger Iranians that are being raised outside of Iran, whether it's US, Canada, the English speaking ones? What else are there that we can kind of hone in on and step by step improve?
So, for generally speaking, I mean, the task of your 20s, right? So, one is academics, career, and then the search for a romantic partner, especially for women. I think it really, the anxiety just kicks in when you're like 25. You're like 5 more years to 30, as though you're going to die when you turn 30. Um, so I really think it's important to stay connected to the self. So different people do different things to stay connected. People meditate, people journal, people do a lot of reading about, what matters to them. But a sense of community, I think it's important because so my training mostly has been in narrative therapy. And so narrative therapy is the therapy of creating stories. And it's a very gentle and culturally sensitive approach to therapy because think about it, a lot of the traditional interventions are based on white individualistic folks, and they don't necessarily always apply to our community. But with narrative therapy, the focus is on, well, what is your story and who do you want to be? So I think problems grow in isolation, right? If I'm just sitting alone with my thoughts, I can start with, oh my God, I don't know what kind of school I want to go to. I'm so lost, I'm so confused. And all of a sudden I end up with, I'm going to be homeless on the streets. That's the tactic of anxiety. It goes from one little thought to this extreme of, oh my God, the world is going to come to an end. That's why I think community is so important to stay connected to other people, even in your age group, and talk about, I feel this. What do you feel? What are you experiencing?
That relatability definitely curbs the challenges, I guess. What about, on the phone earlier today, you mentioned how you yourself deal with anxiety and stuff like that, because people might think that, oh, well, a therapist, they think they know it all and everything is perfect. But the reality is that you have your own life challenges. You're going through the stress of work. Yeah, I mean, you are literally, your entire day is consumed with the challenges of other people, So for first of all, I commend you for that. I commend really all therapists that are able to take on such hardship from other people, because there's no way that you can just compartmentalize that fully. At the end of the day, these patients, they become people that you care and love and you respect, and you don't want them to go through that. So what are the things that you do to kind of keep some type of sanity, some balance, calmness, anything that you do that helps you?
Yeah, so what's really helped, and yes, being a therapist during a pandemic has been really challenging. I mean, there were days, especially early on, when I would just sit and cry because I'm like, oh my God, like I've never done this before. No one trained me to be a therapist during the pandemic. So it's definitely been challenging, but I'm really grateful for technology, for the ability to be able to continue to provide care, even though, I'm still not seeing patients or clients face to face. But so things that really personally helped me as a person who does struggle with anxiety, your basic needs. So am I eating right? Am I hydrated? Am I exercising? Am I getting enough sleep, which varies from person to person? My community, am I checking in with my friends? I do a lot of journaling because I think it really allows you to understand the patterns of, oh, what happened? It was an anxiety provoking week and where did it start? A gratitude journal usually really helps because it allows you to shift your mindset from everything that's going wrong from a deficit perspective to like, oh, look, here's some things that are actually going in a nice direction for me. But another thing that really helps me is to be mindful of creating my own templates. So a lot of times when I have doubt or anxiety, it's usually because the template has been formed from an early age of things need to be this way or they should be that way. And learning to say, nope, I'm going to make my own template. So something that feels pretty true to me.
To you. I want to kind of transition a little bit to social media and how I know you said that you're not big on social media, but ironically or coincidentally, it's because of your social media posts that I was like, man, I really would love to just have a conversation with her. So your social media, even though you think that you're not doing enough into it, just know that it is having an impact. But also social media, as we all know, has a negative impact as well. And um, because our life is consumed with it. What type of advice do you have with people who like perhaps are are having social media negatively impact their mental health?
Which is very common. Excuse me. So I've tried this with a few clients and it's so interesting. They turn around, they're like, you're going to do this challenge with me. And I'm like, ah. So it's kind of like deleting the app for a couple of days. just to see what else is your life made up of. So I usually have clients like draw a pie chart and say, well, what are the slices of your daily pie chart? Social media, school, my boyfriend, my girlfriend. That's it? Yep. Oh my God. So you have nothing to fall back on, right? And so the goal needs to be building up this pie chart enough where social media is not the only thing. So if you're able to use it in a way that helps you, whatever helping means for you and your stage of life, then you're not going to get so caught up, because we get caught up when you're just sitting there aimlessly scrolling up and down, and then you end up in people's lives. So for example, a question I always ask is, how do you start your day? And most people say, I open my eyes, grab my phone, and go on Instagram. So you wake up being consumed with another person, not so much your life. So you don't open your eyes and say, oh, deep breath, I'm alive, I can do this. What are my goals for the day? We're consumed by the other, whoever the other is. And so I think if that pie chart is pretty full, then yeah, social media is a slice, but it's not.
Yeah. I'll be very honest. Whenever the notification comes and it tells you like what you've spent time on, I'm too embarrassed to even look at it. I'm like, stop. Where is it? Where is the option where I cannot have this be telling me where it is? I mean, and the unfortunate part for like me is that I rely on social media to connect with people and do this kind of stuff. So for me, like that's a challenge. Like I can't even take off. I mean, I could, but 2-3 days off the app, I wouldn't be able to work basically. So that's kind of like my personal challenge, is the fact that some people literally their work depends on it. You know, if I go on a hiatus for 3-4 days, yeah, it'll be cool, but like I can't sustain that for a long period because it's disconnecting me from my ability to work. Is there any kind of advice for people like me who like are reliant on it? I mean, outside of the fact that I'm doing 31 days of straight IG lives, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be doing that. But any suggestions in that regard?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because there's a lot of folks out there like yourself who Instagram is, part of, they're such an important part of their lives. I think then it goes back to setting intentions. Before you grab the phone, what is my intention? So am I really going there for my work, or am I going there because I know I'm going to end up on a page that for me may be toxic, and toxic varies the definition of what toxic is for a different person. So maybe setting intentions as to why am I going on? What am I doing? And just focusing on the task rather than aimlessly scrolling.
One thing that I did like a year or so ago, I literally unfollowed or hid any page that is not serving me. You know, like if it's a person or a thing that's just negativity or bad news or whatever, I replace it with a lot of positive pages, like your Instagram, for example. You know, so that's one thing I've been doing. And I do have a nice little question here from Sepide. She's actually from the Vegas area, lovely person. She asked a question: how do you suggest to help our parents' generation to open up, to feel their feelings where there's resistance? I thought it was a great question that just kind of popped up, so I wanted to ask you if you don't mind.
It's a wonderful question, and it's also going to be a very difficult task. Of, that saying of, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. We can encourage people, we can try to educate them, but at the end of the day, if the person is not ready, they're not ready. So I think that goes back to the boundaries of, can we also set boundaries and accept our parents for who they are in their humanness? Because, I think a lot of times when you have the title mom or dad, lots of expectations come with that. If you can pull the label off, right, and just look at them as a woman in her 60s, a man in their 70s, can you understand who they are given the background and the context and history? And you can continue to try to educate them, but there's no guarantee, unfortunately.
Absolutely, that's a great response. And now that Sepida was nice enough to ask a question, if there is somebody else that has a question that you think Ida would be able to assist, feel free to write it out, and I'll be able to hopefully ask the questions. For those who just joined, Ida, would you mind just clarifying again your specialty exactly, so that in case they have questions in context with what you do?
Yes. So my degree is in clinical psychology, emphasis in marriage and family therapy. I work with individuals, couples, and families.
Okay, perfect. So yes, if you have a question, let me know. In the meantime, Ida, I want to kind of go a little bit more into your purpose, into what you're doing. What is the grander scale of your purpose with what you do? Because I feel like you're definitely touching people on a daily basis, but are there some professional goals that you're hoping to reach in the next 5 to 10 years?
From a professional standpoint, yes. So I do think about potentially writing a book. I go back and forth with that. Sometimes I do think about going back and getting a PhD.
What would the main focus of your book be?
The main focus would be to help mostly immigrants with the guilt that they experience. Because I think that immigration is a chronic stressor for parents and their children, adult children. And I think that guilt is something that eats us alive inside. I have so many Iranian clients who talk about, well, I'm very successful. I'm a physician. I'm this. I hate my job. Why did you do it? Because my parents gave up everything for me. And that
Yeah.
guilt that then guides all their life.
Is that considered kind of like survivor's guilt? Is that what it's categorized? Or not, is that more with trauma that's beyond the immigration?
I think it's mostly with trauma, and it's
Okay.
mostly a socially constructed idea based in culture, because the meaning of guilt looks very different depending on your cultural background.
Right. Because I think the reason why I said that was because I think Shaheen, my previous guest from yesterday, as part of his rapping, like he feels guilty that I have all these privileges, that I get to live in America where I can say what I want, while the same person who's rapping about the same thing against, for example, the regime can literally be thrown in jail or worse, even killed, you know? And so that's kind of like, I feel like some people are experiencing that degree. I do have a question from Dr. Nushin Valizadeh, who was my awesome guest a couple of days ago. Her question is, yes, I'd love to know what you advise to parents who are in between. Many of us are Americanized, but still Persian in the way we parent, especially with regard to academics.
So the example I always bring to session when a family comes in, right? So Persian family comes in, and so let's say their kid is 15 and super
Hmm.
frustrated. And then you start to ask questions and you see that, wow, the same rules and regulations that parents had when the kid was 5 have remained the same, right? So there's not enough flexibility, right? And so I think that's the core of the issue. Of there isn't a lot of flexibility of mom and dad. I respect what you're saying, and that worked back in Iran, 19 whatever, but that doesn't work anymore. So I think the advice is to remain calm, to be curious, to hold space for them, because they're operating from fear because they want the best for you and they don't know and they're not willing to educate themselves because that's also beneath them. I know, I'm your mom, I'm your dad. So I think it's really finding the balance between, okay, I understand what you're saying, here's where I stand, and then learning again to be okay with, I'm going to disappoint you, and being okay with that.
I love that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any other questions, this is actually great. I appreciate you engaging with us. Good stuff. Um, so, Ida, tell me one other thing that you think that as a Persian community that we can do to better foster anything that has to do with mental health awareness. You know, if there's anything that you think as a community, whether as a parent or as a younger generation, we can do, I'd love to close down the conversation with how we can improve because I want to make sure we continue to go the right direction.
I think one thing to keep in mind is understanding the core of our culture, which is collectivistic, right? So we are taught to live for others from an early age. There are parts of that that are beautiful, that helps us stay connected, but there are parts of that that we really need to let go of. So part of healthy mental health is understanding what are my unique needs and am I attending to that? So if I need to take time off today and read a book and my friend wants to hang out, learning to say, I'm not going to be able to come and being okay with that. So learning to put ourselves first without the label of, oh, I'm just being selfish.
That's where the Taruf aspect comes, right? You want to be polite, you want to be considerate, and so you're actually negatively impacting yourself while you're trying to appease others, huh?
Right.
All right. Well, I mean, I hope that more individuals get more comfortable to reaching out to individuals like you to kind of break things down. Like what you're doing is kind of simplifying what's happening around us for us, you know, and just kind of opening up our eyes, having more empathy towards, like, for example, parents, you know, considering what they've gone through has changed their mindset and the way that they operate in life. So this is good stuff. I mean, I greatly appreciate you spending time with us. And if there's something else that you want to share with us that you think would help somebody in their challenges, feel free to share. I'll give you the virtual stage to end this note.
Thank you. I did see a little note about people pleasing. I think there was a question.
Yes, Sepida, yeah.
Is
Yes,
it
of
okay if
course,
we address
please.
that?
Of course.
So she's saying, or isn't it partially the people pleasing culture that we have, which I think is exactly on point, because I think that's something that we all collectively need to be mindful of and work on daily and helping each other through that. Um, so on the closing note, I really encourage everybody to think about what are my needs, where do they come from, why am I judging my own needs, and how can I attend to them?
Awesome. And if somebody wants to actually reach out to you and just have these non-judgmental conversations, what is the best way that they can reach you and find out more about your services?
So my website is on my Instagram page. So because I teach law and ethics, I'm very rigid. I'm very conservative with my advertisement. My website is there. I can only provide services to those who live in California because that's where I'm licensed. And then so they would call and we would go from there.
I actually did not know that that there's even through virtual that there's those restrictions and limitations. Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate that information. And again, thank you so much for spending your Sunday with us and being an awesome Persian in our community. Just like Nushin just said, you know, she's so proud to have you in the community and in SoCal. So at least the two of you can hopefully connect. If you haven't gotten to know what Nushin Valizadeh does, it's really amazing stuff. And even Sepide, who was so active in the conversation. These are badass women that I'm just proud to know. And I hope that this group continues to get stronger and stronger. So, Ida, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Be well, and all the best to all you do with your practice.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a
Take
great
care, as this. Go enjoy that wine.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for dropping in today. I appreciate you being a part of the Awesome People Instagram Live series, 31 days with 31 awesome entrepreneurs, creators, and artists. I appreciate Ida again. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Tomorrow, it's my talented musician and composer friend, Amir Khosavan. We're going to be on later on in the evening. It's going to be 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. West Coast time. We're going to chat about music, and also he's going to do a little performance. He always performs piano whenever we do our live stream, so you're going to be enjoying that. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I own a couple of companies, Exclusively Entertainment and Night Owls. If we can ever be a part of your wedding by providing entertainment services or lighting or cinematography, it would be our honor to be a part of your celebration. We are offering complimentary live stream services of your wedding if you book us for your entertainment before December 31st. For more information, feel free to message me. Again, I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Be safe. Be kind. Love you. Bye-bye.